We have Dan Haberkost on the call here this evening. Dan, really appreciate your time. If you want more information and reach out to Dan directly, I'm going to point you to his website. Head over to Dan Haberkost, and that's HABERKOST.com to find his content for information and a few things and details as what he does. But first of all, Dan, we have to start and tell your story a little bit because, I mean, to be frank, and we didn't even talk about this before we kicked on, but I mean, you're fairly young and you've found a way essentially to kind of live the lifestyle of your dreams, especially based on some of the photos and stuff that you post on Facebook. It looks like you have a pretty adventurous life.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on, JD. I'm excited to be on the REI Mastermind podcast here. And yeah, you want me to just kind of get a little bit into the background, a quick synopsis?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face facts here, just so that everybody understands. Dan you're still 25, right?
Yeah. Okay. 25.
25 years old. And you really essentially started pretty early as a teenager, right? When it came to real estate investing.
Yeah, well, rewind. I grew up in Ohio, in a very rural part of Ohio. I like to joke I was born in a cornfield, and lower middle class background. So I started working pretty young, and by the time I was 16, I was managing a portfolio of rental properties for my boss, along with his farm. Well, he spent most of the year traveling, and specifically in Aruba. So I was pretty much on my own. I remember times having to leave high school to go deal with tenant issues. And that experience definitely did not make me want to own rentals. However, in hindsight, what it really taught me was how not to manage rental properties. So fast forward a few years, I got through high school, pretty normal experience, and into college. And I was running a landscaping company my last couple years of college while simultaneously going to school full time. And that was a lot to manage, but I said, okay, I had to deal with this. I had to start working pretty young and pay for college myself. And although I'm not, and this is 20-year-old Dan thinking, although I'm not particularly excited to be doing this, I know I've developed skills and experiences that most people my age don't have. So how do I take that? And once I graduate college, take that extra time and the skills I've developed and create freedom through some sort of investing or build some sort of business. I wasn't sure what it was. So I started reading different books on investing, stocks, businesses you could start. And just like I think a lot of other people who invest in real estate will tell you, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the one that I stumbled across that really got me and started excited about real estate. And at the same time, I'm at work talking to my coworker over lunch one day, and he goes, yeah, my tenants just moved upstairs in my duplex and they pay the mortgage for me. And I go, pay the mortgage? What? And so that's how I discovered house hacking. 2 months later, I bought my first rental property. I was 21. And at that point, I was all in. I started listening to other real estate podcasts, reading other books, meeting other investors, going to some of the other local clubs in town. And I was still in Ohio at this point. But yeah, it started with a duplex as a house hack, made a lot of mistakes, paid too much, let a tenant walk all over me, didn't do a good job rehabbing, but that's how you learn. And without getting too in detail, what ended up happening is I knew I didn't want to stay in Ohio because, as you mentioned, I kind of enjoy extreme sports and adventure. So I moved to Colorado to build a business and climb all the mountains out here. So that's exactly what I've been doing. And now fast forward to today, I have 10 tenants between 4 properties. And then on the active side, I have a land and development business. So I'm building houses and buying and selling a lot of land, some on notes, some for cash. But at the end of the day, I see the active business as a way to generate as much capital as possible to put into more long-term buy and hold. So right now I'm working on buying a commercial building by the end of the year. So for example, I just sent out mailers to every building within Colorado Springs that could function as a Walgreens, for example. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. And I'm just trying to acquire as many rentals as I can in my 20s here, because when I think about an exponential curve, right, the earlier you're able to start, the more impactful it is with each iteration, or in my case, each year down the road, right? So these investments I make at a young age will be more impactful than the ones I make in my 30s and 40s. So really just buckling down and still living like I'm broke and putting all my money into real estate.
Yeah, I joke, we joke a lot, a lot of the people that I know, that if we knew now what we know now, it'd be a different world. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've been doing. And unlike some of us, though, being so young, you've taken that action and taken those steps to secure your future on a pretty early age.
Yeah, well, I did start working pretty young. A lot of the people that have known me since I was a kid will tell you I've been a middle-aged man since I was about 14. So by the time I graduated college, I'd already been running businesses for 7 or 8 years. But yeah, coming from a lower middle class background where scarcity of money was just the driving factor in everything, where we never went out to eat. I mean, I can remember, I think I can count on one hand how many times we went out to eat as a family when I was a kid. And it's not about things, it's about the lack of control over your time. My parents, grandparents, older siblings, older cousins, they were all slaves to their jobs to some degree or another. They didn't get to see their family members that often. They didn't get to go and do the things that they'd want to do. And I just think that's completely unacceptable. So I've worked hard to make sure that that's not the case. I don't think I'll ever be buying Lamborghinis or anything like that, but I certainly want to have freedom over my time and, to make sure my family's taken care of, and eventually to have a family myself.
Yeah, you said one sentence there that I hope everybody rings in people's ears there for a second. It's about the lack of control over your time.
Yep.
And I think that's what we are all trying to accomplish in the end, and to regain some of that control. So good lesson there. So before we hit record, you mentioned that the importance of finding a mentor and getting you started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk about how you found the mentor, and well, it sounds like there's a story there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So as far as the first rental, I really jumped into that before knowing anyone, but there is no way I would be building houses and buying and selling land like I am if I hadn't have found someone who was where I wanted to be and learn from them. So let's rewind to when I moved here in 2018. I went to the local real estate club. I actually host it now with Brent and one other guy who you interviewed. And I didn't know anyone, but at the end of the meeting, a guy stood up in the room. He said, "Hey, I've been in the real estate world for 40 years. I've built houses, apartments, everything you could imagine, owned every type of real estate, so on and so forth. I need help in my business, and specifically with technology, and I'm willing to share a lot of what I know with someone who will come help me." And of course, everyone in the room gathered around him. He gave out his phone number. And out of every person in that room, and I'm not exaggerating, there was probably 40 people around him, 2 people called him. 2 people, myself and one other. And the other guy gave up after a week or two. And I went down, so he lives about an hour south of where we are in Colorado Springs. He's down in Pueblo. And I'd go down there every Saturday or Sunday, one day a week, and help him and then learn from him. And pretty quickly, it was clear that this guy knew everything that I wanted to know. He's built apartments in China. Which still blows my mind. He's owned every type of real estate you can imagine. He's thrived through ups and downs of the market. And it was clear that it was probably going to take more time than I wanted it to. And I didn't especially like getting up early on weekends and driving down there. But at the end of the day, I had a clear goal in mind. So I went down and I helped him every weekend for, it was almost a year, maybe a year plus, before I made any money at all. And at this point, he's one of my primary investors. We're doing all kinds of projects together, both land and development. He's really just a good friend that I can go to for anything, really. But that took time. And this is a point I really want to drive home. I know you mentioned a lot of your listeners are newer, and I see people looking for mentors and posting about it and seeing if someone will come mentor them. First of all, don't use that word, because really what you need to do is build a genuine relationship over time. It can't be transactional. It can't be, "Oh, hey, JD, can you just teach me everything you know for free?" That's ridiculous. So Finding people who are where I want to be and providing them value has been a way to dramatically shorten the learning curve. You're absolutely right that I'm young, but there's plenty of people, both here in Colorado and with the internet now, you can connect with people anywhere who have done what I want to do. So why can't I go find them, learn from them, and make fewer mistakes by learning from theirs? So, right now, wanting to get into the commercial world, there's a guy here in town who owns a whole bunch of strip centers, and I had him come speak at our real estate club, and he enjoyed that. And I'm working on really doing the same thing with him, because he's where I want to be with all the commercial real estate he owns. So that was a quick synopsis of how I met Rich. But yeah, it's really about building genuine relationships over time. If you want it to happen overnight, you're not going to find someone unless you pay them to share everything they know.
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough. It is kind of almost comical how many people will extend their hand and just bold face ask somebody to be a mentor. And it seems to be, these people are very busy that have that experience and that knowledge that you want to gain. And for them to, you just had that great line. It's all about the lack of control over your time. They're trying to earn their time back too. And you're asking them to essentially invest in you.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a little reciprocation to a certain extent, whether it's, like you said, you can hire a mentor, or I thought that was a great tactic that your mentor had, was going to the group and saying, "Hey, I need some help," and you volunteered. And I mean, that's a way to build that relationship.
Yep. Exactly. One other thing I'd like to throw in there too, if you do get lucky enough to find someone who will engage you, if they tell you to do something, whether it be, you want to be a wholesaler, let's say, and they say, well, call these leads or door knock these leads, do it. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, go do it. I had a kid from the real estate club here in town say, I want to get into something. What can I do? And he offered to cold call all of my returned mail. Now that's uncomfortable. Cold calling is not fun. He didn't want me to do anything except hand him the returned mail. So I am happy to help him. I gave him all of it. He went through it, and he's still in process. This is relatively recent. My point being, because he took that initiative to offer something to me and then did it and didn't ask me to do something. It wasn't a request. He just handled everything. I'm very receptive to helping him. And now if he has questions about anything, of course I'll help him. I mean, I respect that. And I am not unique in that. If you're able to provide value and you jump on it and handle it the way he did, most people will respond very well to that and want to reciprocate that back.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the lessons. If you've ever read that book, Go Giver, people, I can't stress that enough. And that's almost the book number 2 behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad for what I recommend people. So with that, like I said, we before we get too far into it, I always like to chat a little bit about not only your backstory, but it'd be interesting if you could share like 1 or 2 deals. Like what's been your most interesting deal, and and how you overcame some things, and tell us about your best deal.
Okay. So most interesting deal would probably be the house I bought last year I bought it right before the shutdown, and it happened as we were rehabbing and refinancing it in the middle of the pandemic. Now, quick lesson here on how I bought it. At the real estate club, there was a new wholesaler, and they show up all the time. Obviously, wholesaling is one of the ways to get into the business without a whole lot of money. So a lot of people show up, say, hey, I'm a wholesaler. They're gone in 2 weeks, but they can't hurt to give them your number. So I gave a new wholesaler my number. Well, what do you know? The next day she calls me with a deal. And as she shares the photos, she accidentally shares her cash buyers list. On that cash buyers list are 4 people, me being one of them. So anyways, it was an excellent deal, great area, best school district in town, up against a park. But it was the junker in the neighborhood. And this house smelled so bad. It was hard to walk into it. Again, the bones were great, no foundation issues, new roof. I mean, it just was disgusting. And the individual that rented it was a middle-aged man, and then his son and his son's girlfriend were in the house. And thankfully, we were very tactful and diplomatic and able to get them to move out with 30 days notice. And a few days after they move out, I'm in the house working on ripping up the carpet, and there's a knock at the door, a very aggressive knock, and it says, "Police, open up." Turned out the son was a wanted felon. He'd already been in prison, and they didn't tell me what he did, but he was wanted to go back to prison. And then the dad, the kind of helpless dad, comes back to, I forget why, he stopped by, and he goes, "Yeah, my son was lying. That wasn't his girlfriend. That was a prostitute." And so this house was occupied by a wanted felon, a prostitute, and the father. And thankfully, we were able to get them out without any issues. So rehabbed the house, put a nice young couple in it, upped the rent by 50% to market value, and now that's an awesome cash flowing asset. But a couple lessons there. I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but the power of networking really is substantial. I mean, you just heard of how I met the mentor through networking. I got this deal through networking. That is really, really powerful because there's not a lot of downsides to giving a potential wholesaler your number. And then at the same time, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought there. I forgot what I was going to say, but you asked for the best deal as well. Okay. Best deal. Well, I'm building houses and buying and selling land, and then also the rentals. So let me give you a good land deal here. There was one that I had to follow up on nearly 12 times. I sent them a land offer letter. Really straightforward. I think you're familiar with that. It actually gives them a purchase price and is a purchase contract in the mail. And They signed it, sent it back, but then they ghosted me. They didn't respond. And this was an awesome lot, awesome mountain view, and I had it under contract for $10,000. I had to follow up with them 12 times, or maybe 13, to finally get this deal done. But bought it for 10 and sold it for 35 shortly thereafter. And I've done that quite a few times with land. That's not really difficult to do. So that's an excellent way to generate cash for the investment. Now, the other deal I'll tell you about is the one I just did. It's hard to say which one's the best deal because obviously the active is a completely different purpose than the passive. Right. But in the passive here, I want to use this example because it exemplifies how you can find a deal in any market if you're creative, right? That's the beauty of real estate investing. It's a flexible asset. So the house I bought most recently, I bought on market here in Colorado Springs, and there was a strategy to how we approach this. So first I went out and found a realtor that specialized in house hacking. The plan was to move out of the house I was in, rent out that bedroom, and move into a new house hack. So that was step number one, finding someone who did this over and over and over again. Number two, we said, okay, if it's over the weekend, every house gets multiple offers, way over asked. I don't even want to play that game. So we're going to look for something that comes on the market early in the week, maybe Monday or Tuesday, that has poor photos or something to show that there's some incompetence on the listing agent side, and that they're not waiting for over the weekend. They're going to take a good offer as soon as it comes in. Mm-hmm. Had a few that we offered on, didn't get it, that fit that criteria. And then one day, one pops up close to downtown, close to Cheyenne Canyon, which is just a hot spot for hiking and tourism and that sort of thing. Great views of the mountains, and it's a tri-level. The basement is fairly useless, but the pipes are exposed from the upstairs bathroom. Then there's the middle floor with 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. Then the master suite's completely separate. So we go to look at it. Pictures are terrible. The realtor tells us that they need to sell to get into the new house they're buying, and they're not waiting. They're just going to take any good offer that comes in. They're not waiting for the weekend. So I see an opportunity here for several reasons. Number one, hey, I can add a bathroom to this basement and rent it out as its own little suite. Then there's 3 bedrooms up here. I'm renting bedrooms for $700 a month with a brand new bathroom that was remodeled. So then the master's on the other side, and I can comfortably live over there. So we made an offer at, I think it was $335. It was listed for $330, and had an escalation clause of $340. At the same time, there was another offer for $365. We got it. The reason being, we put full appraisal gap coverage into our offer because I talked it over with my realtor, and the chance of it appraising substantially higher than what we had under contract for was very, very low. So we put that in there. They did not. The realtor says there's no way it's going to appraise for that. So they took our offer because they saw it as more serious. So couple points there. The way we looked as far as waiting for a house that came on the market early in the week, the type of realtor we're looking for in someone who was lazy, really, and then just the motivation of the seller. They needed to get it sold. Those three factors, plus the value add opportunity of being able to put that bathroom in, have made this work very well. So ended up after inspection getting it, what was it, $327,500 was the final purchase price. It appraised for $340,000. They paid all my closing costs, and then we overestimated costs too, so they put another $2,000 or $3,000 towards my down payment. This is in the hottest market we've ever seen with the least inventory in Colorado Springs, where people are moving like crazy. Mm-hmm. And now the basement rents for $1,200. I just rented to a dentist with an 812 credit score. I rented 2 of the extra bedrooms upstairs for $700 a piece. The extra bedroom on that side functions as my office, and then I live in the master. I like living there. I have an awesome view of Cheyenne Canyon, a big balcony. The house, $1,600 mortgage, $2,600 a month coming in while I live in it. Plus, the bedroom I had previously been occupying in the previous house is rented for $800 a month. So I know that was detailed, but I think it's important to talk about it because everyone says, well, you can't find a deal. And sure, I didn't buy something at 30% under market value, but I did get it under appraised value, and it cash flows while I live in it. It's hard to find someone who can't do a deal like that and who wouldn't benefit from a deal like that. So you can always make it work. There's always a way.
Yeah. No, those were some great examples, and it's miraculous how some of those numbers work. I mean, the house you're living in right now, you're not only living rent free or mortgage free, but there's even overage there to help with. So that's absolutely awesome. So
yeah.
With all of the experience you've had now over the past number of years, what is that one thing that you have done, implemented into your business that made a huge impact?
That's a good question. The one thing I would say, just with everything, well, there's a couple thoughts that come to mind, but to put it succinctly, I think being extremely persistent with everything is essential. You know, I just told you about that land deal. I followed up with them over and over and over again. I could give you a bunch more examples where it was the same case. You know, with the offers to get the house that I just told you about, it was the same sort of thing. We got rejected quite a few times before I found one that worked. With the wholesale deal from last year, we sent out a ton of mailers. We went and looked at other wholesalers' deals. We had failed and gotten rejected many, many, many times. So I think just whatever it is that you're working on, being relentless, being persistent until you're successful. If you're doing something that you know works, right? So if I see 10 other people with land businesses and I say, hey, I know I'm doing the right inputs here. I'm doing the lead measures, right? I know what those are, and I am doing those. You have to be relentless and stick with it, and it will work out eventually. Everything regresses to the mean in the long run, right? So yeah, just being very, very persistent in everything I do. And once the decision is made that I'm going to do something, that's it. It's done. It's not wishy-washy.
Yeah, that is something that I would echo pretty heavily. It's all about that persistent, consistent behavior.
Yeah.
You just have to continue. It's shocking how many mailings I've sent out. And I actually had a phone call from somebody just the other day who had received my postcards a number of times, and they actually had a stack of them when we went and visited them. You know, it's, you know, they've been collecting them for like a couple of years.
Wow. Yeah. Yep.
So you never know where those opportunities are going to come from.
Yep, that's so true. It's on the micro, it can be very up and down. May and June, I got a ton of deals as far as land goes. This month's been slower. I'm not going to get upset and stop mailing. I'm going to mail more because I know this works, and I know in the long run it'll all even out, right? Maybe next month will be dry again, and then I'll get a ton of deals in September,
Right.
So absolutely.
So what are the marketing channels that are working for you right now?
For land, it's been all mailers. And I'm actually just this week setting up cold calling because I'm in a land group of 130 or 140 people, and I was seeing who was cold calling. Not a single person is. So that's a fairly accurate sample, I think, of what most land investors are doing. So I think, and I could be wrong, but I think there's an opportunity there. So I'm going to start cold calling through all these areas as well. So yeah,
Are you
I know
using a service for that, or do you do it yourself?
I have again, here's the power of networking. I have a friend who already has a wholesaling business. He offered to just call everything for me, and then he would take a small percentage of the deal if he gets me a deal.
Yeah,
So
that's a great fit.
yep.
Network. It's all about establishing those relationships.
Yep. Genuine relationships. I think that's what's important. At the end of the day, I'm just doing deals with a bunch of people I like, so.
Well, that's pretty important, working with people you like and building that team.
Yes. Agreed.
So again, I'm going to remind everybody, head over to Dan's website, Dan Haberkost. It's Haberkost. But before I let you go, Dan, is there one question you wished I would have asked you here today?
I wanted to highlight the importance of being persistent when you told me a lot of the listeners are newer, and you already brought that out. I guess the only other thing I would say, if I could talk to myself 4 or 5 years ago, pick something and stick with it until you're successful with it. Because I wasted some time where I sent some mailers to try and get an off-market deal for the house, and then I was trying to put together some development projects and trying to buy some land, and I just failed at everything. If I was 18 or 19, right, I would get a sales job, whether it be a realtor or a mortgage broker or something like that, and pursue it aggressively. Because the other point I wanted to make is, you hear all these low and no money down strategies, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't have money, and that's why they want to get into real estate. And that's great because you can do a house hack or two. But if you really want to build a business and a portfolio, this is a cash intensive business. When the government has an eviction moratorium and your tenant bleeds you, you're going to need cash. When your roof breaks, when your water heater breaks, you're going to need cash. So two things, to put it simply. Number one, pick one thing and stick with it until you master it. And number two, figure out how to make a substantial income to then invest with. Yes, you can have partners, but if you make a lot of money, it gets a lot easier. So whether it's your job, I have a friend that's a doctor, or if you can start some other business or a business within real estate, figure out how to make a lot of money, and you'll be much better off building a portfolio of real estate.
No, well said. Well, I appreciate it, Dan. I hope we can chat again. You're always welcome back. And
thank you.
I think it'd be interesting. We probably could spend an entire episode talking about your development part of your business and how you got into that. And that's a whole nother unraveling of the sweater, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of subtleties that come with that. But like anything, once you know what you're doing, it's pretty simple.
So, well, I appreciate it again, Dan. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you, JD.